Today I would like to discuss the topic of magical training. Magical training. So I noticed that what happens is, for instance, when I make a video of how to do a spell, people that don't have much background in the craft, and even people that do have background in the craft, ask questions about what the spell is going to do for them. And that's kind of like coming up to a piano and asking what the piano is going to do for you. Or if you come up to a flute and say, what are you going to do for me? Or you come up to some pens and paper and you say, now what is this going to do? What is this going to do? The spell is just a tool. The spell isn't going to do anything. The spell is just like if you're doing a puppet, it's just some clay that looks like a person. It looks like a doll. If you're doing some candle magic, it's some wax in a wick, maybe colored wax. If you're using perfumes, it smells pretty, you know? So there's nothing supernatural about anything that you do with a spell. There's absolutely nothing supernatural in the ingredients. There's nothing supernatural in the procedure. There's nothing supernatural in the words. I don't care if you're doing mystical symbols on a piece of paper and you're calling on demons. There's nothing supernatural about that. It's just words and lines on a piece of paper. Nothing supernatural. Okay? So what the spell does is it is a device of communication to your deep mind. Anything else but that is nothing. Nothing. The only magic that can work is your deep mind. And whatever we can do to install a thought form into the deep mind actively, we need to do it in order to get the results that we want. Because the deep habitual mind is where all manifestation begins. It's the realm of cause. And this has always been true. It's always been the case that there's two types of ways to approach magic. One is effective and the other is superstitious. Okay? A superstitious way of looking at a spell would be, that box that I put money in is now going to glow with grand energy and is going to attract money magnetically to me through occult and supernatural means. Well, okay, you can think of it that way if it helps you to install thoughts into your deep mind. If it helps you to think of things that way, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you understand that it's just symbolic. There's nothing about that box that is got any power over your finances. The only thing that has power over your finances is the thought form that we are attempting to install in your deep mind. Now, if we took that money box and we recognized that each time that we place money into that box, we are installing a thought of eternal, increasing, long-term wealth that continues to grow over time, that's powerful. Then yes, and remember that our deep mind only speaks in symbols. It is very childlike. So whatever we can do to get it to believe that this is happening, that's wonderful. Absolutely, that's wonderful. And so while we're in the spell, we definitely want to have all of those parts of our mind active that is easily swayed by things like symbols and stories and ideas of magic and things like that. Absolutely, that's wonderful. But then to believe that there's something about the box that's special is taking all of your power away from the spell. Now that's why I spend so many weeks on that witch's primer. That's why we spend so many weeks in training your mind. Training your mind. The reason why we do that is so that when you approach a spell, you can do it effectively. You're using all of those trappings, all of those tools, that whatever you're using it to build a new thought form. You're using it to replace an old thought form with a new thought form. You're installing something into your deep mind that will actually create real results in your life. That's why we spend so much time in training. It's because if you don't do that, if you don't train your mind, then it's very much like somebody just sitting down at the piano. Yeah, they might be able to make some sound, and some of them may be able to teach themselves how to play over time. And you can do that with magic. You don't need formal training. You can teach yourself how to do it over time. But if somebody that wants to really master the piano, they can't do that usually by themselves. They need some training. They need to actually learn how to master that keyboard, which takes a lot of practice, right? Anything worthwhile, it takes a lot of work and a lot of practice and a lot of training. It's not just having a really nice pen does not make you have good penmanship, right? Buying an expensive fountain pen won't make you have beautiful handwriting, right? But conversely, the cheapest little pen, as long as it leaves some ink on the paper, anybody that's got a great handwriting can make that pen write beautifully. There's some people that can come up to an awfully poorly made guitar, just really poorly made guitar, just like horribly made guitar, cheap ass guitar. They can pick it up, sort of tune it, and make it sound like a symphony, whereas other people can pick up the most expensive Les Paul and they'll never make any good music out of it. Well, think of your spells like that. Some of those spells, they are really intricate, and some of them aren't. Now, some of those really intricate spells, somebody with no training or no understanding, they may be able to work those spells and get some results because they through the action of doing what's being called for in the spell, they are actually installing some thoughts into their deep mind, in spite of themselves. But somebody with a really well-trained mind can use little to no tools at all and get extreme results, or they can use those really complicated spells as well and get extremely great results, right? But it's the training of the mind. It's the training of the mind that makes the difference. And every single day of a witch's life is involved in training our minds. And it doesn't matter if you use the training that is set out for you that I give in a witch's primer or something else. As long as the training involves you learning how to do the following. First of all, you have to close your mind to your sense awareness of what your present situation is. You have to turn within and turn away from the manifestations that you are trying to change. So you need to turn away, close your eyes to that, move into an inner state, and we do that through either things like meditation, casting a circle, right? Finding a way to enter a place that represents that inner world that is turning away from the manifestations that we are seeing. Learning how not to believe what our eyes are telling us necessarily, turning away from that and going into the source of power, which is inside of us. And then, once we're able to do that, once we're able to close our mind away from the manifestations outside of us, then we learn to, find, depending on how we're working at, find the offending thought form that's causing the manifestations that we don't want, and learning through the occult law of substitution how to substitute or supplant an old thought form with a new one. And we do that through various different means. And that's why there's so many different types of training that is important to go through. Training yourself to visualize, training yourself to relax, training yourself to concentrate, training yourself to purify. Right? So learning all of those different things that we go through very painstakingly in this basic training of a witch's primer isn't just so that you can say, wow, I did a lot of exercises. No, it's so that you have skills, so that when you do get want to perform a spell, you can make it work. You can make it work. It's not just going through the motions. Because what'll happen is somebody will get a spell and they'll perform the spell and they'll say, well, that didn't work. Well, it's not that the spell didn't work. It's just that you didn't work the spell. It's very similar to somebody picking up a guitar and not making pretty music and saying, this guitar didn't work. It didn't work. Listen to that. That's horrible. It's not the guitar that's not working. It's you that doesn't know how to work it. So when your spell doesn't work, it's not that the spell is the problem. It's that you didn't know what to do. Now, having a lot of training in your background, you will also know that there are going to be some times that certain spells aren't going to be appropriate for certain kinds of things because they don't address the problem properly. So not only are you going to be able to make the spell work, you're going to be able to understand which spells to work. And that happens through training as well. And it happens over time. We are interested in results. We are interested in results. Did you solve that problem? Did you obtain that goal? And if you didn't, let's figure out why. If you didn't, let's figure out why. If you did, let's make sure to remember what you did so that you can repeat it. Because we don't only want results, we want verifiable results and we want repeatable results. I want to know that every time I sit down and do a spell that it's going to have an effect no matter what. I don't even wonder. Oh, God, I wonder if this is going to work. The only wondering I have is it'll be kind of cool to see how this manifests. I can't wait to see how this one manifests because there's always that mystery. You never quite know. It's just like planting a seed. Yeah, maybe you're going to get some gladiolas, but you don't necessarily know how they're going to look until they come up because every gladiola is different, right? And some flowers come up with different colors than what you were expecting. Some harvests are greater than other harvests. So you don't always know how it's going to manifest, but you have absolutely no doubt in your mind that it's going to manifest because all you have is a decent track record, because you're not just playing at casting spells. You're not collecting a bunch of spells and talking about your spells and just, doing spells for spells' sake. Your spells are nothing more than communication devices to your deep mind. They are vehicles through which you are implanting a thought form into your deep mind, and that thought form always will have its counterpart in the physical world. And until you are getting results in the physical world, you are not satisfied with your methods, right? So if you're not getting the results, then you're not there yet. It doesn't matter how cool of a spell you performed. If you're not getting the results, then there's some training that needs to happen, that there's some training that you need to go through. And so that's why sometimes I recommend that people go through some of those bodybuilding exercises, that 5 weeks in a witch's primer. Do that again. Do that again and do it again until you start having results all the time with your spells, right? So it's not so much, again, I want to just recap it because this is so important. I say it all the time, but then I get these interesting emails that the way the spell is constructed is very important, absolutely, because it's like the sentence structure of what you're trying to communicate to your deep mind. So yes, the spell, how it's structured, can be very important. So there is that, but on another level, it doesn't always matter what the spell is if you don't know how to make it work. And you can't know how to make it work until you go through the training necessary. So you just have to buckle down and do the work. You have to buckle down and do the work and be a witch. And I don't care what they say. Bitches be witches. No, witches are not born. They're made. Now, many of us were born wanting to be witches. I know that's true. I know that I wanted to be a witch before I knew what it was. I know that that's true. In that way, yes, bitches, I say it again, witches are born. But skills of witchcraft, successful witchcraft, is not something that you can inherit. It's not something that's genetic. It's not something that's some sort of, there's no sort of witch race that you can just be born into and then you just twitch your nose and all is well. That involves not only initial training, but perpetual training. Think of it like bodybuilding. You know, if you want to be buff, if you want to be a big buff bodybuilder, you got to be in the gym on a regular basis. And you don't just get to a point and say, okay, now I'm there, I can stop. It's a forever thing. And the same is true for us. It's a forever thing. If you want successful magic that is successful over time, that you can constantly expand your sphere of influence more and more and more and more, it doesn't come by wishing. It doesn't come out of a can. It's nothing you can buy. There is no occult store, either online or in the real world, that sells anything that can give you that. The only way you can get that is through training. All right? So I hope that was interesting for you. It's so wonderful to talk to you, and I cannot wait to work with you again. And until that time, blessed be.